Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark TV. You guys know who I am, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get fired up about my guest. We will be spending time today with Dr. Lewis McCall, and we'll be talking about his book, Joshua, Slave, Understudy, Warrior, Spy, Successor, Conqueror, and Ruler. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show, Dr. Lewis. It's glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be here, Dr. Angela.
Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to talk to you about this book. I love our conversations together, and I think that our audience is definitely going to enjoy this one as well. Now, before we get started, I may be introducing you to some new people out there. So first question for you, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
What makes me me is God, because he's in me, and I learned early on as a child to love him, and that opened up doors. Uh, I came from a very poor background, uh, and and yet I became the first in my family to attend university. I got a PhD from Northwestern University, went on and taught political science at the Ohio State University, and then went to the National War College and was with the Department of State for 36 years. Uh, uh, I have worked in or lived in more than 60 countries in that capacity. And now I am retired, and that gives me the opportunity to write. And I see what God wants me to write, and that's what I write.
Oh, I love that answer. Thank you so much for your service in all that you have done for this nation of ours. I definitely salute you there. Thank you. Now, I am glad that you have stepped into this new stage and phase of life. Your books are just really good. And I'm so glad that you are sharing your knowledge base. With that being said, the title of this book, why was it so important to choose the title in this way?
I think the title, particularly the subtitle, shows the arc of development of Joshua. He starts out literally as a slave. He's making bricks just like the rest of them. The Bible says that the Hebrew people built treasure cities for Pharaoh. So that's what part of those bricks went for. Uh, and uh, and so he gets to see what Moses does. Okay, he's about 40 years old when Moses enters the picture for him. Okay, he's heard about him, but now Moses comes back when he's 80 years old, and he delivers them. And Moses uses Joshua quite a bit. That's why he goes through these roles. And about 3 years ago, my wife and I, we traveled to Egypt. We took a cruise up the Nile River, and it wasn't our first time in Egypt, but there were things that we wanted to see. One of the things that we saw in the Valley of the Kings was the tomb, the mortuary tomb of the woman who was the foster mother of Moses, Hatshepsut. And her daddy, the Pharaoh, uh, was he was also a Moses. He was Tutmoses. People probably are familiar with Tutankhamun, the boy king, King Tut, he's called. Well, her daddy was Tutmoses. And so when she adopts this Hebrew baby, she kind of gives him part of her daddy's name, Moses. Anyway, his mother actually became Pharaoh, and it was because there wasn't a male heir in time. And so there are statues of her carved out of granite or whatever with a beard. Apparently, she would paste on a beard to look more masculine, but she was very much a woman, and she had her ideas. And so Moses grew up learning all of the ways of the Egyptians and their knowledge. There are things that the Egyptians did that we still today don't know how they did them. Uh, and so he comes back, and he's not a stranger. The people that wanted to kill him, they're gone. God told him, look, the folks that wanted to kill you are gone. Get back there. I got a job for you to do. And very early on, Moses taps Joshua for an important task.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, having those extra pieces of information kind of really brings the story together. I think for so many people, they are still just understanding the Bible from their Sunday school perspective, right? They haven't really sat down as adults and as I like to say, taking it to the whiteboard and just put all of the facts out and connect the dots in that way and seeing how the Bible can really come alive with the history that we know and the information that is in the Bible. We can make it a little bit more 3D, if you will, a little bit more real in our space, and I love that. I love that. And you know, being a person who has to be in touch and in tune with God and knowing the Lord is telling me to go back, to be safe, to step out, to do it now. I think that that really is a point that a lot of people are experiencing right now or currently in their lives. They're being told to step out, to step up, and it's safe to do so. So if this was if someone was looking for a confirmation, I love that you included that line. Perhaps this is the confirmation that they were looking for. Now, when it comes to this book, and I try to ask this of every book that comes my way, would you say that this book is appropriate for someone as young as high school? Will a 14, 15, 16-year-old be able to follow along?
They certainly would. I wouldn't go much younger than that because there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of bloodshed. There's a lot of sex. So you don't want to give that to too young of an audience. But it's the truth. This is what happened. And I know in my experience as a diplomat, uh, my colleagues who served in the Middle East, many of them who were not Christians began to see things through the lens of a Muslim. And they'd say, well, you can't condemn Muhammad for, killing people because Moses killed people. And Joshua's at the forefront of that. Well, it was very different. God waited until, in his eyes, the sin of the Canaanites was full. Okay, and they were in Egypt all of that time until he brought them back. And it's interesting, they had a shortcut to get into the land of Canaan, uh, which would have been a lot shorter, but God didn't have them go that way. They would have had to go through the land of the Philistines. They had giants too, but when God listed the Canaanite peoples, he never mentioned the Philistines. That was for a later time. So he also uh, basically baited a trap for the Egyptians. And in Moses' words, they think that we're lost out here. uh, but and so they came with their chariots and horses, and they were going to take their slaves back. But it was a setup. And God began to do these miracles. He had a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day. Well, he put that pillar of fire there between uh, the Pharaoh's army and Moses' people. Had Moses split the sea, because Moses was saying, hey, what are we going to do? And God says, what are you calling out to me for? What's that in your hand? Stretch it out. And they walked through on dry ground, and the sea is piled up on either side of them. They could probably see the fish in there and whatnot. And so as they get to the other side, God removes that barrier because it was light to the Hebrews, but it was pitch black on the other side to Pharaoh and his people. And uh, and God told him, these Egyptians that you see, you will see no more. And that included the Pharaoh who was leading them. And it's very interesting. It's a footnote in my book that archaeologists found the body of that Pharaoh, and he was different than others. When they unwrapped it and look at him, for one thing, he had all of these, uh, it was like smallpox. What it was, one of the plagues were these boils. And that was the evidence that he had been afflicted by that. And so they didn't see them anymore. And they went on, and there was one incident after the other. And they certainly got on Moses's nerves. he he complained to God, "Why are you put these people on me? This is more than I can bear. Just kill me now." uh, so there was that, and they would upset God themselves directly. At one point, they said, "We're tired of eating this manna." You're getting a daily miracle out in the desert, but they complain. And God fixed their wagon. After that, they got quail every day along with the manna, but the first ones to eat the quail, and they didn't even wait to pluck it and roast it and anything. They just started gnawing on it, and they're not supposed to eat things with blood because the life is in the blood. And they died, the first ones, okay? And then later on, as God said, they got so tired of the quail that they started throwing it up. It was, it's kind of ugly, but that's the kind of stuff that went on. And Joshua was there all the time. He became the understudy. He became the aide de camp. When Moses went up into Mount Sinai 7 or 8 times, and most of the time he took Joshua with him. Now he would have Joshua wait at a point while he went further to interact with God, but Joshua got to do that. And there's an amazing story during this time where Moses takes the elders with him. That includes Joshua. And they're translated up into heaven. They see God and they don't die. And the angels serve them dinner. And they're so awed that they don't dare look up and see the face of God. uh,
You know,
and
I am so sorry to cut you off. That when you think about the awe that they experience, and as you were saying it, it reminds me of how ungrateful people really are, right? Like you said, you're out here in the middle of where, and you're being fed, and you're ungrateful because it's the same thing, right? Like we wanted steak tonight and you gave us fish. How dare you? You give us quail, you give us chicken and we wanted fish. How dare you? You give us light. You give us coolness, you give us fire, you give us cloud, you give us clothes that have lasted this entire time. Like all of these blessings that they have, you've given us a route that is supposed to fortify us, to teach us, to make us strong and prepared, and you grumble about it all. Oh my goodness, I tell you, people, God is such a awesome and amazing God, because I think if a person was in charge of people, there would be no more people left, because people would just be tired of people. So, oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. Well, it's time for us to take a very short break. Now, of course, we know that your book is available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. But Dr. Lewis, if someone wanted to reach out to you or visit your website, what's the best way to do that?
They can go to lewismccallinternational.com. And that's Lewis spelled Louis, the French way.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone, you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, do you have something to share? Be a guest. Want to sponsor an episode? Visit drangela.chester.com. Thanks again for watching Daily Spark TV.
And we are back. Dr. Lewis, I love that you are telling us about a person of the Bible that I think most people are at least generally familiar with. Why was it important, as far as you being an author, of all of the characters you could have chosen, why was he the one that made the list for this book?
Well, as I've said before, I kind of wait on the Lord and see what he wants me to write. So he highlights the person, and then I look for confirmation. And I get confirmation from different places. As I was considering doing that book, my wife and I were out in the country and stopped at a little Texas steakhouse. And the waiter came up, and his name was Josh. And I said, Josh, you are my confirmation. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm an author and I'm writing a book about Joshua. And your name is Josh. That is a confirmation to me that I'm on the right track. So we got into a long conversation. He wasn't going around serving other people. He kept talking with us. But that's how I work. I because people tell me, why don't you write this book or that book? No, I wait to see what the Spirit wants me to write.
I love that. Now, speaking of understanding what we are supposed to do, what are some of the ways in which Joshua meets God? What are some of the ways that he too notices that God is ever present?
Well, because he became like one with Moses, as I mentioned, they were translated up to heaven together. He went up Mount Sinai with him several times. Also, when they built the tent of meeting, that was before the tabernacle, he would go with Moses into the tent of meeting and they would hear God. Okay. When they finally built the tabernacle and dedicated that, they no longer had the tent of meeting. They would go in there. And again, they would hear God. And the Bible says that, Moses, after he finished, he would leave, but Joshua would stay there. He enjoyed the presence of God. And in the end, God told Moses, I want you to ordain Joshua because your time is coming to an end. And you need to do that before the people. Moses had two sons. He didn't he didn't keep it in house and pick one of his sons. He did what God told him to do. God had that long 40-year training period for Joshua for a purpose, and he trained him. So when Moses died, and he went up to Mount Nebo and got to look into the promised land. My wife and I went up there 3 years ago, and we could see directly from the top of Mount Nebo where they likely were, 3 million people, and where they crossed over to get to Jericho, and we've been to Jericho too. And it's a straight shot up there to Jerusalem. God had him ready. They mourned for Moses when he died. God buried him, so nobody could, take relics from him and whatnot. And certainly Satan wanted his body. He'd have taken him like a zombie and used him. And so Satan and Michael, the archangel, they kind of got into it over that. But anyway, at the end of 30 days, God tells Joshua, get up. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you got to lead the people. And he said, just like I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. And so God starts doing some amazing things for him. So just like the Red Sea parted, the water stopped on the river, the Jordan River, which was at flood tide. Now, when it's not at flood tide, it's a muddy mess, to tell you, at that point before it goes into the Dead Sea. But it was at flood tide. They did not have pontoons. They didn't have boats. There was, how in the world were they going to get across with 3 million people, all of their cattle and stuff? Well, God stopped the water several miles upstream, very different from parting the Red Sea. And they were able to get through, but he didn't stop it until they did what he told them to do. He told the priests to carry the ark out there. They had to get their feet wet. They had to show some faith that he's not sending us out here to drown. and so they had that miracle. And then they, God himself, the Bible talks about this angel, but this angel is a pre-incarnate version of Jesus, okay? Because Joshua falls down and worships him. No angel will accept worship. Worship only belongs to God. So that was a theophany. And so that angel, which is Jesus, tells them the strategy, and they march around the city and so on. I have a picture in the book of the remnants of the walls that fell down. You can see what happened. And they fell out, and it was like a ramp that they went up into the city and basically put them to the sword, except for Rahab and her family, because she had taken care of the spies. And Joshua was one of the, had been one of those spies initially. And when it came his time, he just sent 2 people. He didn't send 12. Okay. So they get over there, and God is still doing amazing things. Joshua, even in one battle, because all of the Canaanites kind of got together, rather than being picked off one by one by the Hebrews, they decided they were going to overwhelm them. And Joshua, and it's the image that I have on the cover of the book, he hears something from God. The Bible doesn't tell us what God said to him. But after getting that from God, he goes out and he tells the sun, you stand still. And moon, you stand still over there. And they got an extra day of light to finish off these combined armies. And it was a blitzkrieg. It was a lightning war. And they moved on and quickly dealt with the giants that were out there. But not the Philistine giants, because that wasn't part of the promised land. That wasn't their time. God was saving that for David. And so you have all of this happen. He lives to be 110 years old. And at age 108, God tells him, your time's growing short. Get your affairs together. So just as Moses in Deuteronomy, at the end of Deuteronomy, gives a farewell address to the people, Joshua calls them together at Shechem, and he does the same thing. And then he goes back to his home, and he waits, the next 2 years for his time to end. Joshua did not become a king. He was simply the intermediary for the theocratic governance of God. God was the one who led them. And then you had the judges after him. And finally, people asked for a king.
Oh, I just love how you are laying it all out. I think that when we are able to know the backstories, when it's more than just kind of the mundane reading that people tend to do. I Unfortunately, I hear far too many times that people say the Old Testament is so boring. It's just kind of droning on and blah blah blah. And I have to remind them, you must be just calling words. You must not really be reading. Like, read it with some passion, with some emphasis. Use the expression that is yourself. Read it that way, like you're having a conversation, and you will find that there are some awesome and amazing stories. There are so many lessons that you can learn there. And you touched on so many, in that being that apprentice and understanding that not only are you a great and amazing leader when you are able to pass on the baton, but it is seeing the passion of another person and understanding that, sorry, sons, it may not be you, right? It's going to be this other person. It doesn't mean that you aren't great guys, but this is the person that God has called to this position, and we're going to accept him for this new position. That is a great leader. That is also just really knowing when to step out, when to speak up and say, I accept this path for my life. Uh, we just don't have enough time, because Dr. Lewis, I have so many more questions for you, but I guess this is a great time for me to put in my usual disclaimer. If you want to know how the story ends, you gotta buy the book. Thank you
Amen.
again for being a guest on the show. We know the books are available on Amazon and wherever books are sold, but what is the best way to reach you or visit your website?
Just go to lewismccallinternational.com, and my online bookstore is there, and got book trailers, all sorts of stuff, a place where you can interact with me, and I welcome people to do that.
I love it. Dr. Lewis, thank you again for being a guest here on Daily Spark TV.
Thank you, Dr. Angela.
Absolutely. And viewers, thank you for spending time with us here today as well. You could have been anywhere and you chose to spend it with us. I thank you for doing so. I hope that we have once again enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.